Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you very much for joining Evenbreak today. We have another very exciting Meet the Employer session. So we are meeting with the John Lewis Partnership today. And before we start, what I wanted to do first of all was just introduce you to our fabulous BSL and closed captions ladies. So we have Carleen. Carleen, thank you very much for joining. And we also have Deborah as well. So welcome both. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to let you all know that in today's session, we will have a chat box running, and it gives you an opportunity to ask any questions, share some experiences, because we will have both Tom and Joe from the John Lewis Partnership who are happy to chat to you. So feel free to go onto the chat box and ask any questions you want or share some stories. I just wanted to check in and make sure that our closed captions are working. All good? All right, fantastic. So Meet the Employer is part of our Hive service. It's 24/7 and it will be available on the Hive because we will be recording the session today. However, you will not be recorded. It'll just be myself and the panelists. So without further ado, I would like to welcome the John Lewis Partnership team. And today we have Laura, Nicole and Helen. Welcome all. What I would love for you to do is to introduce yourselves, your role and why you're here today. Why don't we start with you, Laura?
Sure, thank you, Rosa. Good morning, everybody. I'm Laura Page and I'm the Talent Assessment Manager for the John Lewis Partnership. So that means that I look after how we assess candidates for all roles right across our business. I'm here today because the key part of my role is to ensure that we assess all candidates in a fair and objective way. And I love my job because treating others fairly is personally really important to me. So being able to have that as the main focus of my job keeps me really engaged and really busy.
Thank you very much, Laura. Nicole, would you like to introduce yourself and what you do at John Lewis and why are you here today?
Hi, I'm Nicole Rushton. I have been a partner for just over 2 years. I'm a case manager for Waitrose head office, Waitrose is also part of John Lewis, if you're not aware. And the main reason I'm here today is because I used Evenbreak when I was at an absolute end of my tether, trying to find a new employer. And far too many employers were making me jump through too many hoops, making me feel as disabled as I didn't want to feel, and making me feel that every challenge that I was already over myself was going to be a challenge to them. And when I came to Evenbreak, I was really warmly welcomed, and I was able to find an employer, that being Waitrose, that was open to people with my sorts of challenges, and it really went forward in a good way. I found all the accommodations that I needed and a few more, and I had such a good experience. I went back to Evenbreak and said, hey, you're doing such a great job. How can I help tell other people that Evenbreak is out there? And then I've been invited to today's session.
Fantastic. No, Nicole, I can feel an incredible story coming up, and I think you're a fabulous ambassador. So I look forward to hearing more about this story a little later. Helen, would you like to introduce yourself, your role, and why you're here today?
Absolutely. Oh, I think I've just lost you.
Are you still there?
Oh no, I'm here. I'm so sorry, everybody. Yes, hello, I'm Helen. I am a personal policy advice specialist, actually. So I'm more sitting in the background here because I'm sure the others will do most of the talking around recruitment. But a part of my role is sourcing and implementing equipment, training, software for anybody that requires it as a reasonable adjustment to help them in their new role, and even established partners.
Fantastic, thank you. I can see us probably maybe leaning in on you two a little bit later to find out or to get some examples of the sorts of reasonable adjustments people have asked for and how you've supported them in that.
But
let's get started. Laura, I'm going to pick on you first, if that's okay.
Of course.
Tell us a little bit about the John Lewis partnership. I mean, I did do a little bit of deep diving, and I just wanted to share with our audience some of your values, which are really impressive. Do right, all or nothing, give more than you take, be yourself always, why not me? These are very, very democratic and very, very inclusive values. Laura, could you share a little bit more about John Lewis, the organisation, the number of staff, and also tell us about the type of roles that are available at the partnership?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. That's good research. Those are our 5 key values, and they kind of are there to underpin everything that we do, and they summarise, I guess, in a easy to remember way what's important to individuals that work for the partnership. So Nicole and I think have both sort of touched on it, that you may be familiar with Waitrose, you may be familiar with John Lewis, but we are the same organisation, so the John Lewis partnership encompasses all of that. We're a big organisation. We are about 80,000 partners, and we'll use the term partners probably quite a lot today. That's how we refer to colleagues, staff within the organisation. We are a democratic co-owned business, so we are all partners with an equal share and stake in our organisation. So we've got our 2 big retail brands, and you might have seen us in the news this week, and particularly today with our seasonal roles have all gone live. So lots and lots of vacancies to fill right across the country in our John Lewis shops, and soon to be our Waitrose shops as well. So we've got our
roles do you have advertised at the moment? I mean, because it's such a huge organisation.
It is. I think last count, and I last had a quick look, it was about 500 individual vacancies that we've got live, but they could be for many heads. So that's a role, we might be looking for 200 selling assistants in a particular John Lewis, for example, but that would count as one vacancy. So lots of opportunities, particularly at the moment as we get ready for our busiest time of year. So in terms of roles, we've got our retail roles that you're probably familiar with and would have experienced meeting our partners within our shops. But behind those, obviously, we've got the head office roles that you'd expect to support our shops in trading. So anything from marketing, finance, HR teams where I work, customer care where Nicole is. We've got our buying departments and even our own occupational health team. But you might not know some of the other things that we have. So, for example, we have our own farm. We've got the Waitrose farm on the Leckford estate, and you'll see products on our shelves in Waitrose supermarkets that have come from the farm, so we need to find people to work on the farm. We've also got our own textile factory, who are usually quite busy at making made-to-measure blinds and curtains, but last year turned their hand to produce PPE for the NHS for a big portion of the pandemic last year. We've also got our financial services, so offering pet insurance through to the partnership credit card. And then my favourite, we have our own private hotels. There are best benefits. If you work for the business, you get to stay in these amazing places in beautiful locations across the country, exclusive to partners and their families and friends. So yeah, lots of different roles that you probably wouldn't associate with a traditional retailer that we have. So I guess whatever your skill set is or your interest, we probably have a job somewhere that would match it.
I think based on what you just said, there definitely is. That's really quite incredible. Thank you very much for sharing that. I hope that gives our audience a bigger picture or insight into the John Lewis partnership operation and what's available. I'm going to stay with you for a little while. I want to know, because obviously you've got quite a diverse range of roles and opportunities. And you're not just a retail business, you're lots of other things, okay? So you will need to recruit staff on many different areas: operations, sales, marketing, retail, IT. I'm sure I've missed quite a lot. But can you give us an example of the other sorts of roles that we might not expect to see there? And also, can you tell us a little more about, are there particular roles that are difficult to fill generally? Or does it sort of depend on the time of year or the kind of staff that you're looking for?
Sure. Yeah, I guess all of the above. In terms of the roles, I think, building on what I've said, the fact we have hotels means we need hotel managers, we need receptionists, we need housekeepers, we need chefs, all sorts of roles that you wouldn't necessarily think that a retailer would need. And then more, I suppose, broadly with our own occupational health team, we've got physicians that work for us, we've got podiatry, we've got a whole range of people and skilled people in different areas. In terms of what's difficult to recruit for, or where we've got some gaps, you'd have seen in the press that there's a nationwide shortage of drivers, and that's been affecting us for quite some time actually. As a business, we have struggled for a while with drivers, and that's really come to a head over the last month or so. So drivers is a big area for us to focus on, and that is nationwide. But also since the pandemic, particularly areas such as catering and hospitality that we have, so either in our hotels or in our shop cafe offerings, we've really struggled in those areas. And then niche roles, I think it's really around our digital and tech roles, the software engineers, that kind of specialist role. We do struggle. I think we find there aren't that many people out there that have those skills, and we're not a natural fit for them. They might be looking at Google and Amazon and some of the bigger players within tech, and they won't necessarily associate the John Lewis Partnership with being a tech organisation. But we really rely on our online sales now more than ever. So we have a whole team behind that, pushing that forward.
I'm hoping after today your applications might increase in those areas. So all of you IT techie people out there, take a look at our Evenbreak job site and see what there is, and get your application in. Okay, I want to ask you, how do you make your job adverts and job descriptions accessible to all?
When we're posting our job adverts, we think about the language that we use and how easy to understand it is, and we also use a gender decoder, because historically, I guess some of our roles can be geared towards one gender or the other, and therefore the language that follows that. So we're very mindful of the language that we use and making them open and accessible to everybody. We make a real point of removing any legacy issues or points from the job description that are no longer really important anymore, and we are quite clear on what's essential in the role and what's desirable, because really we're looking for what's essential. So we try and be really upfront about that, about what skills and experience we need, and take out anything that's not relevant. We don't want to exclude anyone for a reason that isn't particularly valid. As of this year, we now add our commitment to flexible working on all of our job adverts. So that's something that's really big in the partnership, and I'm part of a job share myself. I have a flexible working agreement and I have done for many years. So we post that on every advert, say, come and talk to us about what working flexibly for you would mean. And also we post our salary ranges, and I find it odd that some organisations choose not to do that, but we try to be really upfront, and we make it clear that the range that's available for the job.
Tell us a little bit more about what the benefits are around sharing the salary with your audience.
Well, I think that there's lots of things, but that there is some research to say that it can be off-putting for some candidates, but I think that's outweighed by the sort of transparency of seeing that information up front, thinking actually that is the role I'm looking for, that's within the range that I would expect to be paid and I want to be paid, and therefore putting an application in, as opposed to not knowing the salary and finding out quite far into the process when you've invested quite a lot of time in it. But also although we try not to do this, some of our roles are very internally focused, so our role title might make sense if you work in the partnership, but if you don't, you might not work out exactly what level that is, and is that kind of where you are at the moment in your current organisation. So being able to put the salary alongside it makes it clear for people to know actually that's a mid-level role that I'm currently in, and that's the one that I want to go for.
Yeah, and it allows people to self-screen themselves in and
Absolutely.
out of the application process rather than trying to guess. But of course, we know it's not just about salary, it's about lots of other things. It's about the company values. It's about what you can, what the employer can offer the potential employee. We spoke earlier about the accommodations, the flexible working, the sense of community. So there's lots of different things that will attract our disabled candidates to opportunities. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about career development and progression? What sort of initiatives and programs do you have available at the moment?
Yes, it's a good time to ask that question, actually, because I started in the business a really long time ago, 20 odd years ago, and I started in a shop, and career progression was really straightforward. Then you were sort of developed in some ways, put on a course, and they churned out managers, and we had great training, and we moved around, and progression was quite easy. But over the years in the business, that sort of hierarchical step up has really changed. That's not what's important to partners as much now as it used to be, and it's more around finding the right role that you can excel in, as opposed to necessarily going up the grade. So our approach to development has really broadened, and we're less rigid, I guess, in the to develop you must go up the chain. So we're trying to move away from that and move away from sort of the hierarchy that surrounds it. So I think the key thing for us at the moment is apprenticeship schemes. So we have a lot of apprenticeship schemes. A lot of them are for internal partners only. So although we have some that are run externally, there are, once you're in the organisation, there are lots of opportunities available, but you might not necessarily see that from the outside. So a lot of investment's gone into our apprenticeship schemes, and we've seen some great successes from that. But we also have a fantastic learning team, and they have created loads of content that's available for all partners. So whatever your interest is, what you want to learn, develop, be skilled in, attend coaching sessions for, we have that. We've got a coaching bank, and we've got a mentor scheme. So even without going on a course or a particular goal in mind, you can work with a coach or mentor to work out actually what it is that you need and the support you can get there. Development at the partnership is fantastic. There are lots of opportunities, lots and lots of resources. As I said, they're open to everybody. We also have a leisure learning subsidy, which a lot of my friends find quite strange, that the partnership will give you up to half of any sort of paid course or interest, which has nothing to do with your job. So if I want to learn to swim, for instance, I can go on a course to do that and claim half the money back from work. So another kind of benefit that we have, the partnership is all about developing yourself in whichever way sort of brings value to you or to the business. So yeah,
that sounds very democratic to me, Laura. If you don't mind, I'd like to move on now to Nicole. Nicole, welcome back. Can you tell me about your experience of the recruitment process? Did you have concerns or worries about, your disability and talking to it? Please share your story. We want to hear your experiences.
So medically and disability wise, I'm a huge advocate. So I'm an open book. So don't think I'm sharing my personal medical history that's scaring you all off. But I have 8 rare diseases, and I was, to the best of my understanding, under complete control. Most people would never see anything. And then I was permanently disabled in a car accident that caused disability to the level that I've got nerve damage in my back. So that, unfortunately, although again, it's invisible, it means it can trigger any of my other conditions. It can mean that my speech goes stuttered and everyone looks at me thinking I'm having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, or that I've suddenly got Tourette's, or if they see me walking with my sticks, or I spent nearly 3 years in and out of a wheelchair. Oh gosh, I was repeatedly faced by employers that I was sitting there thinking, I could do this job. I read the job description. I know your company. Let me at it. I'm ready to go. And they were looking, and so my questions in an interview were more so, once I'm hired, because it's obvious you're going to hire me, duh, I wouldn't be here if you weren't. Can you meet my needs? Because I'm going to have a few needs that may or may not be reasonable for your company. And I don't want to get my heart set on this and sign up to take the job and then find out that you don't have the appetite or don't have the knowledge or the infrastructure to support me. And many of these previous employers they almost looked at me like I was a person with 3 heads. And they sort of gave me this, I perceived it as they were saying, excuse me, you haven't even got the job yet. And I'm going, do you have any idea how qualified I am? How much I can bring to your organization? I'm entitled as a candidate to ask these questions because it's just as much about me working for you as us being a good fit for each other.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it wasn't about the money. It was more about, am I going to be able to feel comfortable working for you? Because I spend a lot of hours, and when I get connected to an employer, I will get absorbed. And it doesn't matter if I'm the bottom of the totem pole or the top of the totem pole. I'm gonna immerse myself in you as my employer, and I want to know that it's going to be a good fit, that I'm investing myself and my spoons in you. And after so many bad experiences, I'd come across Jane Hatton, who started Evenbreak, and I thought, okay, all these other regular recruitment sites, I don't know who these employers are. I don't know who these recruitment agents are, but at least the people who advertise within Evenbreak, they've been vetted. And there's a pretty good, solid, agreement that these companies are have the appetite. So I applied, and it was quite easy for me online because it was all question and answer. And then I got a little nervous because there were some yes and no questions, but they spoke them out loud to me. There was an option to speak them out loud. There was an option to watch a video or listen to it or have it closed captioned. I had to take some little assessments about my personality and like situational judgment. And I was, again, very concerned. Oh gosh, is it going to be yes or no? Is it like school? Because my brain doesn't work for yes and no and multiple choice questions. I'm very neurodivergent in that aspect. And I got through it. And when they called me up to invite me to an interview, I was immediately greeted with reassurance and calming sort of vibes. We've got a couple of more little assessments for you to do, but I'm aware because you told me on your application that you need a quiet room and that you need to be able to stand up and walk around. I'm aware that you need this. I'm aware that you need this. And I thought, whoa, they're aware. They read the application. They paid attention. When I got the call a couple of days later, again, it was really reassuring. My new boss, Adam, so it wasn't just some random person in HR, it was the guy I was going to work for. And I said, I was almost in tears. I was so excited to finally have found that next step. I kind of had to start my career over again. And he said, yeah, it was a bit of a no-brainer. You passed all the skills with flying colors. And I was like, well, that I knew. And he said, but I just wanted to let you know, here's your start date, and you're going to be contacted by several different people from occupational health and HR because you disclosed, so that we can make sure everything's ready when you get here for whatever you need. And I was thinking, this is a dream come true. Let's hope the proof is in the pudding. Let's hope it actually happens. And it did. It was nothing like any of the other employers I'd ever been working for. When I started, even little tiny things like needing extra time for bathroom breaks, being able to get up and walk around, compressed schedule, everything had already been looked into. My chair had already been assessed for ordering. I have to have an electric desk. It was already in the office. They already had them available. We weren't playing catch up. Everything was already ready to go. And then they took me aside very discreetly, very respectfully, and said, how else, as we get going, if you find other things that you need, I needed a sharps box in the office. I needed the ability to pop to the loo basically any and all the time. I needed certain compressed shift patterns. I work any 4 in 7, but I needed never to have more than 2 days connected to one another if it goes past 7 o'clock at night, but if it goes till 5, it's all these funny little things. They said, no problem. They said, oh, by the way, after you finish 3 months, you can work from home 2 of your 4 days a week if you want. And if you need any special equipment for your house, we can make that happen as well. I had a very desk that was made available to me to be able to have the stand-up workstation at home. Even on a day of a fire alarm, because I have Addison's disease, I can't handle certain types of acute stress. So a big alarm goes off, everybody exits the building, it's kind of crazy. The fire marshal came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder and just said, "I've got your little bag here. Is there anything you need?" And I thought, wow, you treated me like a person that needs a little something, but may not need something. And it was so, I don't know, heartwarming for me. And then over time, my sort of neurodiverse angle of seeing things and being an advocate for my conditions and other people with my conditions, I found that it was an added asset to help me handle some customer queries. And then we have a section in our department called Partner Ideas, where you can say, I think there's a better way to do something. And that led down a path of being able to do some secondment work, where you can kind of go do a different role for, say, 3 months or 6 months. You might even find another career path out of it. It's kind of like try before you buy. And then I was also able to participate in something called Accessibility Working Group, where I brought a very unique perspective to the table. And that was all about making our website and our marketing materials user-friendly for people who need JAWS screen readers, who need other, colors changed, gray text, sections and everything. And they had all of the disabled sort of connotations, but what they hadn't looked at is the older generation who's new to technology. And they were like, wow, Nicole, you've got a really great perspective. Can we borrow you? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know. Are you allowed? And they said, yeah, this is a partnership. It benefits everybody. And so even as a partnership, because we're so big into helping each other and doing the best, all the same hashtags that Joe was talking about, or I'm sorry, not Joe, Laura, it allows us to be yourself and be rewarded for it and be allowed to have it become part of what you do every day. It's just such a different environment to work in.
Great, thank you very much. I hear you use the word partnership a lot, and I can hear it in your story. You are a partner. John Lewis is a partner. The fire warden's a partner. Everyone's working collaboratively and collectively together. And you mentioned the words be yourself. So this organization really does allow you to be yourself. You can use your fantastic neurodivergency strengths. Yeah. And you're being supported in that by John Lewis through the different accommodations. And just the transparent communication between you and the organization is just fantastic. Helen, can I get you to come in here and just tell us a little bit more about reasonable adjustments and accommodations, because I know that this is an area that you work in before I come back again to Nicole. Did you want to add anything to that?
Most of what I do is for established partners once they're in role. So the HR department, as everybody knows it, doesn't necessarily get involved, because the partner, there I am saying partner again, once a partner is in a role, their main communication is with their immediate manager, who should be able to get to know them, to have those review meetings, to have those chat, and the purpose is to really get to know that individual. We have called it knowing the partner behind the badge. And so if the relationship is established, that manager will do whatever they can to ensure that partner has what they need. Sometimes they will come to us. We may have to resort to some really specialist advice, as opposed to our general occupational health advisors. but it's like Nicole said, it's about being comfortable and having that reassurance, and we just want partners to just be the best that they can be. And it was really interesting what you were saying about, you know, someone who is neurodiverse. We will, of course, do whatever we can to support them with regard to their needs, but we can also really cherry pick the skills that can be so good at.
Absolutely. Helen, thank you. I'm going to come back to you, Nicole. I wanted to ask you, how important is it, because you are an excellent example of being a self-advocate. You know who you are, you know what your skills and strengths are, you know what your value is and how you can be of value to an employer, but you also know what your needs are. And that's really critical, isn't it? How important is it for our candidates to be their own self-advocate and know what their needs and wants are when it comes to reasonable adjustments or accommodations?
I think it's critical, because when it comes to any condition, if I use autism as a generic condition, somebody might have seen it on the television and they associate particular traits with that, and they would think, oh, okay, everyone who's autistic needs these adjustments. But anybody who lives with a rare condition or a different condition, any condition, you are the best advocate for yourself. You know what you need. And I know no two people with the same condition need the same accommodations. So if you can take a few minutes yourself, one of the websites I've used before, it's in America, but it's called the Job Accommodation Network, JAN, and they've got a list of about 1,000 different conditions, and you go into this website and it gives you ideas to help you, the user, and also the employer, to get an idea about what might be something that could help you as a person with that condition. And it helps you kind of open your mind to what could be asked for. And the biggest thing that I've learned is don't ask, don't get. What's the worst they're really going to say? No. And if you ask, you might just give yourself that little bit more reassurance, confidence, empowerment to be able to focus your day on doing your job and not having to worry about all that other baggage stuff that you hope nobody sees and that you hope you can get through the day. But sometimes getting ideas from other areas, or it can be helpful to have a clue.
Nicole, you must have a great skill as a mind reader, because you've just answered my next question, which was, how can we know what and how to ask for reasonable adjustments? How can we educate ourselves? So you've just given a gold piece of information. So that's called the Job Accommodation Network?
Yeah, they shorten themselves to call them JAN. I think it's a bit of a non-profit website. I found it years and years ago, and it just gave me a bit of I never thought that that's something that would be applicable. But yeah, actually, if I had that, or if I asked for that, or suggested that, that it would actually make my job just that little bit easier. I mean, a really perfect example for me is I prefer to have I work a compressed work schedule. So it's an 8-hour and 45-minute day. 45 minutes of that is unpaid break and lunch sort of time. And I think I might have just messed up the numbers, but I know that 45 is the lunch part. Normally it's split as a 30-minute and a 15-minute as standard. That's how the computer spits it out. But there's nothing to say that you can't ask for that as 3 15-minute blocks, or as a 45-minute block, whatever works best for you. And I found, because I stood kind of standing for quite a while, 45 minutes worked better for me because I always had to pop to go to the loo several times anyway, so I got little bitty walks. But when it came time for lunch, I needed a little bit more time to be able to go and decompress my head. All I had to do was ask. And it was as simple as that. People don't think about, I mean, it's not just about wrist rests and glasses and whether or not you use pens and pencils, sound barriers. Anything can be relevant. And for anybody who's ever had to do a DWP form about how your disability affects you, you have to think about things that are normal for you, but other people don't even know you do them. People who have tremors oftentimes find that they've naturally moved towards always wearing elasticated trousers and shirts with no buttons because their hands can't do it. But that's an adaptation you've made to your own life. So it's just normal for you. But if you don't tell somebody that you have made a conscious decision to do something slightly differently than the norm to accommodate yourself, then you don't know any different, but your employer doesn't know that you do something different. It's not just a habit for you, it's an accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you just have to think outside the box. And it's really great how the partners and the partnerships, my boss, he took a really good time getting to know me. And he knew we've specifically situated our desks opposite one another. And I told him, I said, Adam, sometimes I might just need a little reminder that you can hear my speech slurring, that you've noticed that I might be becoming symptomatic, but I haven't noticed myself, and that I need to go and deal with something myself. But I get so wound up, I'm not even noticing. And we came up with a little bit of a lingo. He'd say, Nicole, do you need a chill pill? But that was our code word. It was discreet. Nobody knew what it meant. But if he said, Nicole, do you need a chill pill? He was actually saying, Nicole, I'm noticing, I can hear your words slurring. You might need medication. And that all came down to getting to know each other, and for him knowing that I do things a little differently. And I'm still so thrilled that, I've spent the whole of lockdown, the whole of COVID as a shielded person, working as a key worker from home, safe, fully accommodated. My whole desk and workstation and everything got moved to my house, everything. The partnership just looked after me.
Fantastic. And I think this talks to the fact that we are all partners. We all have to get involved. We all have to get to know each other. This is a great example of how your employer is your manager is getting to know you directly. He's making himself aware. He's educating himself about your condition, and he knows how he can support you. Because I think often out there, there may be this fear amongst employers because they don't know what disability is. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to manage it. They don't know how to support their staff. And really, it just comes down to communication and some awareness and really just getting to know your staff. Isn't that right? And Helen, sometimes employers might think that it's going to be really expensive to hire somebody with a disability. So we're trying to bust some myths today. A lot of people don't know about the access to work. Do you want to talk to that a little bit? And then I do want to come back to Laura.
What part about access to work?
For example, a lot of employers, and indeed a lot of our candidates, are not familiar with what access to work is and how it can help.
So Access to Work is a government organisation. It's attached to the job centre. We use them quite a lot, not always. It does require for our partner or our new partner to make their own application, but we will help with that if need be. It may be that Access to Work tend to start with assessing somebody through what's called a workplace needs assessment, where they will have a discussion with them and their manager. Before we had COVID, they would absolutely come into the work environment. Some, more often than not, it's done online now, but they will talk about the tasks and the actual environment. Do you need to go upstairs? Is there a lift? What's the lighting like? What are the sound levels? They will write a report. They will have a specialist that writes a report, and then that report will give recommendations to the individual, and that's shared with the manager. Sometimes that's all that's required. Sometimes we may have, let me give you an example, we might have the National Autistic Society have somebody that they might need a little bit more support. So Access to Work will pay for some things, support workers, signers, if we've got somebody with profound hearing difficulties. They're very practical, but what you don't necessarily get is the one-to-one support. And we do, we work with various organisations and charities that will come in and work alongside somebody in the work environment, but they may also help them with social issues, paying their bills, looking at housing, other support, things like that. So it goes beyond the work environment.
Deeper. So you're looking, it's a holistic approach. It's looking at the whole person and how they can be supported. That's really innovative. Helen, thank you so much for sharing that. That's really insightful. Laura, can I come back to you, please?
Of course.
Okay, so how can I stand out within your recruitment process?
That's a good question. It is difficult. We are a big brand and we do attract a lot of applicants. So some of our more popular roles are more automated. So there might not be someone looking at your specific application. So don't be disheartened if you don't get through on a first attempt. We probably get on average about 12 applications for every role. And that varies obviously massively across the country and depending on the job, but we do get a lot of applications. So yeah, don't be disheartened if you don't progress. It may be that no one's actually looked at it. Unfortunately, there is a bit of a numbers game. But I'd say when you're putting an application in, whether it's your application form or the CV that sits alongside it, the key thing that we're looking for is, do your skills and experience match what we need in the role? And as I mentioned earlier, we've worked on our job adverts and our job descriptions to make sure they're really clear about what it is we're looking for, and there isn't anything unnecessary in there. So think about your skills and experience and how does that match to exactly what it is that we're looking for. There's also information on our careers website, so jlpjobs.com, around our capability framework, which sits alongside the values that you called out earlier, around actually to be a partner in a co-owned organisation. What are the things that we look for? Things like working collaboratively with others and delivering great customer service. All those things are important in whatever role you join within the partnership. So I'd say just make it really clear, either on your application form or CV, what it is that makes you different and makes you the right fit for that job. Yeah, that's right. And that goes right the way through the same interview, and all the rest of it is thinking about your skills.
Tell us a little bit about your interview process. Is it different types of interview for different types of roles? Give us a quick snapshot of what that process looks like too, please.
Sure. So our assessment stage, yeah, absolutely can vary depending on the role, but typically for all roles, regardless of level, you'll be asked to complete 2 tasks. One is usually an exercise, so that might be you need to take some time out and think about a structured answer and present it back. It might be a group activity that you work on with other people, and then that would always be complemented with another exercise, which is typically an interview. So an interview with 2 of our assessors. So it's a multi-method approach that we use, but it can vary. And again, there are details on our job site about the process that we follow.
And obviously, if somebody would like to request for an accommodation, they can just simply reach out and do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So on our website, there's details for our admin team who are on hand to talk to any candidate about what the process is. So if you're applying for a specific role, they'll be able to let you know there's a task that will be presented to you on the day and an interview. for the task. You'll be given 30 minutes,
Yeah.
for example, 30 minutes to read some information and come up with a plan or come up with an idea and present it back. So they'll try to be as clear as they can about what the process is. And then we rely on the candidate to say, do you know what, I'm going to struggle with that element. This is where I'm going to struggle with it. What can you do? And that's absolutely what our team are there to do, is to put things in place so we level the playing field for everybody.
Yeah.
So
and sometimes like just that clear communication on what the process is allows people to know, so they're not second guessing. Simple little things like that can make such a huge difference. I have got one last question before we go to Q&A. Well, kind of one and a half. And it is, why would our Evenbreak candidates want to apply for opportunities at the John Lewis Partnership? Or why should they even? Laura?
Oh, I was going to say, I think Nicole's probably best to answer that. But I think some of the examples Nicole's shared would probably support. Actually, Evenbreak's been a great support for her and leading her into the organisation. But I think about why join John Lewis and via Evenbreak. A lot of organisations talk about diversity and inclusion, and read different things in the press around what people are doing or not doing. I think the only thing I'd say is that there is a genuine. It's very genuine and authentic within the partnership. We want everyone to thrive, and Helen put that really well earlier. So it's not just a buzzword for us or something that we want to make us look good. It's something we genuinely believe in. And recently we've had a restructure, and out of that has become a big team focused solely on diversity and inclusion. And they are delivering great stuff already for our organisation and have a big agenda to work through. So I think if you're looking for an inclusive workplace, my experience and what I see and kind of what I stand for in my job, John Lewis is a great employer for that.
Nicole or Helen, do you want to add to that quickly before we go to Q&A? Nicole, I think you do.
I think one of the reasons I very specifically fell in love with the idea of Waitrose as a start is not only because it's a big company, and I know the idea of corporate can scare a lot of people off because they think, oh, I don't want to just be a cog in a wheel, a number. I've worked in corporate, and this is not corporate. But also kind of leaning on what Laura was saying, there's so many different types of jobs. I mean, from the farmers and the hotels, and there's scientists at Waitrose in little lab coats in like a CSI style thing investigating food. There's people taste testing food. There's people who do graphic design just to lay out the shelves of how to get all the products in it. And then there's buying and selling teams and marketing teams and copywriting teams. There's people who do nothing but social media. And then there's people who do nothing but HR, probably has a little bit more office-y based, administratively based, has career qualifications, nothing to do with food. And then you've got the whole of John Lewis as well. You've got all the different product lines. It still blows my mind anytime I walk into a John Lewis because there's just so many different types of product specialists. Everything from fitted kitchens and carpets and aftercare and clothing, makeup, and all of those things. You've got the cookery school, and then there's just IT. There's coding people. There's so many different types of things. You don't have to start in one place and stay there forever. You can move around. It's huge.
You know what, Nicole? I'm just going to say to our Evenbreak audience, come on, guys, let's go on to the Evenbreak job site and let's go job hunting and search for some of those amazing jobs that Nicole's just highlighted. But you're right, the diversity and the breadth of opportunities really is quite incredible. Helen, did you want to add anything finally before we go to some Q&As?
I don't think I could possibly follow what Nicole's just said because she's just so wonderfully enthusiastic. But I would just say, give it a try, make that relationship, and tell us what you need.
Helen, you couldn't have said it any better and any simpler. It's just really about transparent communication because you will get the support that you need. It goes back to what Nicole says. If you don't ask, you don't get. we're going to go to our questions from our Evenbreak audience. So just bear with me, ladies. I'm going to move the chat box across. Okay, so question number 1. I'm just going to put it out there so anyone can answer it. This is from Gopal. Thank you, Gopal. Why do hiring managers reject candidates with health conditions on the candidate application? Who wants to answer that? Laura?
We don't. It's kind of my simple answer. So hiring managers won't see that. Our recruitment team will see if you've declared that you require a reasonable adjustment, but we certainly wouldn't reject anyone on that. What our team will do is pick up the phone. It's a first port of call, and try and contact the candidate to have the conversation. Email obviously works better for other candidates, so we try that approach as well, and we discuss their application and what they need to support them with the interview process. It's quite different to Helen's job, or once you're in role, but certainly in the recruitment process, the recruitment team are there to do that. Hiring manager doesn't see that. If the hiring manager needs to be aware because adjustments need to be made in the interview, then that information will be shared with them, so that they can support the candidate in the interview. But we ask for it so that we can support.
It may be, Gopal, that you may have had some negative experiences in the past. So today what we're doing is we're demonstrating to show you that there are some incredible, inclusive and diverse employers, such as the John Lewis Partnership. And as Nicole has just so eloquently highlighted today, we do have another question that's come in, and it talks to, can you share your diversity and inclusion goals and mission now and what they are in the future? So I'm going to go to you, Laura, on that.
Yes, it's a good question. So we, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a new diversity and inclusion team. They've only recently come together, and they are working on a number of commitments, and part of that is data gathering, and out of that may come targets, but at the moment we don't have anything firmly in there. The sorts of things they're working on at the moment are for a broad range of things, really. So I think I mentioned earlier as well that we've recently introduced flexible working to be included on every one of our job adverts. You may have seen in the press, we have, or from this team rather, they've come up with the equal parenthood pay and leave policy, which is quite new for organisations in the UK, and that's happening. Other things we're working on at the moment, the team are pushing for supporting young people who are leaving the care system, so we're doing quite a lot of work there. And also, it's not quite launched yet, but we're working on a new career programme for partners that are from underrepresented groups, to improve their internal progression opportunities in the partnership. So this new team are tasked with quite a lot. I think one of the challenges really we've got is a lack of data, if I'm honest, of current data. And I think back to the previous question, I completely understand how poor experiences in the past may discourage people from disclosing either what they need or disabilities they have, or certain personal information about them. I completely understand that. But I think that's a bit of a challenge for us in terms of setting these targets. We almost don't know our starting point, but the team are doing quite a lot of work to try and help with that.
Fantastic.
So we can be more open.
My goodness, they've got a lot of work ahead of them, and they've only just started. That's incredible. Here we have the next question. What percentage of John Lewis Partnership and Waitrose staff have disclosed disability or mental health issues?
I don't think we can answer that. As I mentioned, part of a challenge is candidates or partners not being necessarily willing to disclose it because of the experience they might have had in the past. But also we recently transferred to a new HR system, so we're still sort of grasping what information we can get from there and asking partners to input those sorts of details. So unless one of my colleagues can correct me, I don't think we have a clear view of that.
Okay. This seems to be a long one. I'm going to just read this out slowly. Okay, so does John Lewis have any schemes for over 25s that provides training? This is a great question. And or experience embedded into their role to help people without skills and experience build them. For example, adult apprenticeships and traineeships. So many people with mental health conditions want to work for good employers like yourself, but lack the experience to gain employment. So that's a really excellent question. Thank you, Helen. Who would like to answer that? Laura?
Nicole,
I can also add a tiny bit, just from my perspective, is once you get in role, you don't have to. I mean, I'm quite possibly a little bit overqualified for what I do at the moment, but I accepted that because I wanted to get my foot in the door in an organization where I could grow. But then I've used the vocational learning subsidy. So I know that Laura mentioned the other learning subsidy. Leisure learning. So leisure learning might be something more learning to train dogs or learning taekwondo or learning something that's unrelated to your work. But we also have a vocational learning subsidy where you can claim part of the tuition cost back. So you can do additional coursework that might be directly related to your current role, or it might be related to a role you're trying to progress into. But then there's also all of these secondments that are wonderful stepping off stones to get your network profile raised just a little without necessarily biting off more than you can chew. And that can give you that exposure and that experience to take into the next role without necessarily having to say, I'm committing to completely changing my career path.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Laura can maybe add more to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great summary, but also just add that in direct response to that question, we don't have an age limit on our apprenticeship scheme, so they are open to all partners. Our internal ones are open to all partners. So the 25 doesn't matter in the partnership, luckily.
So regardless of age, gender, sex, disability, get on the Evenbreak job site and start your search right now. I would like to say a very big thank you to you all. This has been very educational and very insightful. Nicole, Laura, Helen, thank you very much for joining us today. We do really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone else too, our audience as ever, that comes in and joins us every week or every second week. Our future sessions include Evenbreak Explores Neurodiversity, which is coming up in the next week or two. We'll also be interviewing a fabulous lady called Amanda, who will share some tips and guidance on how to succeed at interview. So we've got lots and lots of different events coming up. Please go to our About Us section on the Evenbreak website and check out all of our events. And don't forget, you can go to the Hive. This webinar will be recorded and it'll be accessible for accessible for everyone, my apologies. But also we've got lots of tools, information, articles and advice to help you all. So again, thank you very much for joining and see you at the next one. Bye.